How do you attack? How do you attack someone who is very strong and has a consistent record on climate change, how to address it, how to promote clean energy, how to take action in areas that they are now attacking with falsehoods? So it's really important that we hear from the journalists, especially Jeff Page, who dug into this just on his own when he saw some of these mailers at his home in Ocean Beach. And I want to leave time for them to go into detail. JW and Paul have done this for decades. And then open it up to questions from you. And finally, at the end, we'll do a call to action and explain what needs to be done to stop this from impacting elections. And any investigation that's done will take place months after the election is over. If there are fines, if there are penalties, if there's investigations, they'll be long after this election dust is settled. So with that, I'll turn it on over to our presenters tonight. And again, thank you all for spending a Sunday evening learning more about the problem with dirty political action committee money and being used to spread or to spread falsehoods.
Thank you so much, Lori. I would like to ask for our panelists, our expert political investigative journalist panelists, to introduce themselves. And so we have Jeff Page right here. If you want to just let people know who you are and your background, and then we'll move on to the next one and we'll start diving into this topic.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Well, the first thing I want to say before I say anything is I'm more of an amateur journalist. I mean, we got J.W. August here who had a full career in this, and Paul also. I mean, I'm a minor compared to those guys. But I do have a journalism degree. I just spent all my career in the construction business. Been recently retired, so I'm been a lot more active. But I've been writing things for the OB Rag for probably about 10 years. And so my qualifications are basically, I mean, in the last part of my construction career, I worked on construction claims for 20 years. So I've dealt a lot with claim type stuff. And I got really trained in looking into people making claims about things and trying to find substantiation for it. So that's kind of my thing. And I got started when I saw that mailer and I saw the things on it. I go, okay, well, they're making claims. Let's go check into them, and found out it was all a pack of lies. So that's basically, I'm sort of your citizen journalist, I guess is the best I could say. I don't put myself in the same JW.
We'll definitely appreciate for your work, and we're going to be excited to hear a lot of the information you was able to uncover and follow that trail. And Mr. J.W. August, would you please give us some of your professional background and let everyone know who you are and your expertise?
Investigative reporting for a number of years, worked at 10 and 7, and now Times of San Diego. I work with them and a number of other websites. I like journalism. And Jeff is being too modest. It was his story that got me digging. Now, I saw Jeff's story and my eyes went boing. I can't think. Democrats turning on each other like, like the Republicans. I couldn't understand it. So I started digging. I found some things, Jeff, I can share later. With everybody, but I'm independent. I'm not taking sides on this, though I know Lori Saldana, and I know her reputation. I've known her many, many years. I knew her father as well. However, when I saw the ads that Jeff pointed out, and I looked at them, and I ran some of the newspaper articles, I said, well, this is awful early in the season to get this nasty, especially within the same political party. And that's where I'm at.
JW, you also worked for a couple news stations, right? Did you want to share that too, or did you already?
I did.
Okay.
10 and 7, NBC, CBS, NBC, ABC.
All right. And Paul Kruger.
Yeah, hi there. I'm retired 2 years ago. I had much the same career as JW. We were kind of shadow colleagues. I started my career in 1975 at the Reader, worked at the Union, freelance for some national publications, and then spent 30 years as an investigative medical political reporter at NBC7, where I worked with JW in my last couple of years. And I don't think I would call myself a working journalist anymore because I'm retired and I'm now involved in working on volunteering, on campaigns and for issues that are important to me because I think they're important to the community. Foremost, the Ash Street building fiasco is my number one issue. And then I'm also working on multi-unit ADU restrictions. And as a part of that, I was drawn to work for volunteer for Lori and Tommy Howe because they share opinions with me that are driving my interest in politics from this very new perspective as a observer and participant. And I want to just second JW's comment about Jeff. Citizen journalism is what it's all about. I mean, this is an example of somebody who was not a professional, but you don't need a license to practice journalism. What you need is skill, which Jeff certainly has and got from his life experience. And we do owe it to him for writing so far the only article about this scurrilous series of mailers from a very shadowy group that voters must learn more about. So thank you all for joining tonight.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing, and to provide your talent and expertise on this very important topic. I would like to start the question off with Mr. J.W. August. Can you share with us what is an ad watch?
Oh, ad watch is, before we did this, it's been a while since I covered the election. So I wanted to catch up on everything, see what the new laws were. And I didn't even know about ad watch, but that's the Fair Political Practices Committee. It's an agency at the state level. And it's called ad watch. And let's say you see a questionable flyer like oh, you can't see that, can you? Oh shoot, that's one of Lori's flyers. I didn't put them in color, it's too expensive in color. And you can send it to ad watch, and those guys will check it out to see if the thing's ethical and legal. Let's say you're driving down the street and you see this billboard that is really questionable. Your cell phone, click the picture and send it to FPPC. You don't even have to send your name. You don't have to tell them who you are. You just send it to them and say, this is one curious ad, or this is one curious billboard. It's really a service. It's a couple years old now. Never heard of it.
So can you tell me what's the difference of something being ethical and something being legal when it comes to these campaign ads and attack ads and hit pieces?
Oh my gosh, what a question. Now, Lori's the professor here. Lori should give
bring her in then.
I mean, ethical it's just the right thing you do. It's wrong to say things about people that aren't true. I don't care what your goal is. I mean, you can't do that. And
Well,
haven't we had enough of this at the national level? I mean, aren't we sick of this BS of the lying? Why do we have to bring it in our own hometown?
So when I served on the elections committee, we managed a lot of transparency, mostly on ballot measures. And I authored language and worked with the FPPC on how to let voters know who was paying for them. Because if you'll remember, it's only been in the last several years, they put the top funders on those flyers that are sent out. So we had to change laws to let people know that there are deep, deep pockets that put tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars into statewide ballot measures. And the voters were left seeing only brought to you by your friends down the street. I'm exaggerating, but it has been a matter of deception. And so we had to change some of the regulations, which can be tough with FPPC because it is a state constitutional matter, which means it needs a super majority of support. And there were a lot of my colleagues who didn't want to support those bills. So just the fact that I was bringing them forward put me sometimes at odds with colleagues who would rather see FPPC have less control. And I was trying to promote to have more transparency and more control. So the question of morality, ethics, and law gets very blurred in politics, I think, as many of us know.
Thank you. So I know we want to talk about just the overall concept of how to do investigative journalists when it comes to politics. JW, did you want to kind of start us off on where we can go, where our attendees and our
Sure.
voters? Yes.
Put the board up and you
Oh,
run us through it.
So I mentioned it, and then I guess I wasn't ready. I thought I had it up. Give me one second,
Okay,
and I'm going to get it up.
better you than me.
Right, exactly.
JW, someone asked about the AdWatch address. Is it just adwatch.com, adwatch.org?
I think AdWatch FPPC. That's what I would do.
I think it's right on here.
Yeah. Okay, now watch it. This is all, everybody can do this. This is San Diego. This is local races. The city of San Diego campaign search file. There's the address, efilesandiego.gov, efilesandiego.gov. Now, Sonia, if you'll take us through it. So I want to find out about these guys. What are they? San Diego, New San Diego. So I click there.
For some reason, it worked when we practiced. I don't know if it's going to work now.
Try it again.
Can you guys see my browser?
See the cursor. It's right on it.
Okay, so let me stop this and we'll try this again. I know we rehearsed it. Here's the site. I see the site now.
Okay, good.
Okay. Can you
There it
guys
is.
all see it? Okay, great.
Then you see this electronic filing system. You go down. The left side is for the public. The right side is for the politicians. Now to campaign disclosures, this has been very easy so far. Hit the access filing and let's search by the name of this organization. That's all I know. So I click on search by name first.
Yeah, and what's that
You
name?
click search by name.
What do you want me to put in?
Oh, then the name of the group, New San Diego.
Okay.
And search by name and do it. You don't even have to put dates in. This thing is really good. Ah, bingo. Here they are. Here they are. And as Lori pointed out on our pre-meeting, if you go to the bottom, Lori, why don't you tell them about that? Go down to the bottom PDF and what's interesting about that. If you'll open that up, anybody could open up the PDF.
Do we want to do the FPPC 410?
Yes, open the 410. Anytime you start a new committee, you initially file a 410. If you look at this document, you see it started in August, many months ago, before anyone knew what the districts were and who was running. Keep going down, you'll see the authorizing or the controlling officer. So they call themselves New San Diego. The controlling officer, principal officer, is Gil Cabrera, former head of the City of San Diego Ethics Commission, current head of the Airport Authority. And that brings up some other conditions that he's appears to be violating. So, whoops, you can go back to that again.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, go back to see what the top says. Go back.
Okay, let me stop screen. Let me stop my share.
Well, while you're doing that, let me just point out that anytime a committee, a political action committee, creates a new fundraising mechanism, they have to file that 410. That's the first step in raising money. And they're supposed to identify the purpose of the committee. When we get back to the screen, we'll have a chance to see there is no additional information or purpose. And I think if you, so you don't see.
Results. Back to results. Okay, sorry.
That's okay. You don't see what that committee was assigned or created to do.
Yeah.
There is no.
And the date
specific
was, when it
purpose.
does show up is 5/6, months later, 5/6. If you see the 5/6 one, I went through all of them. I looked at them. And suddenly they revealed the purpose of this.
Cinco de Mayo, they decided this committee was really intended to oppose my city council campaign. So it took them from August to May to come up with that designation.
And the other one was May 17th was, I saw the Democrats were given money by them. And when I saw that, I asked Lori, well, why are they giving the Democrats 5/17 the money? And
And Jeff, you can also address this because Jeff Page mentioned this when we were discussing the rationale for $5,000 going to the county party. So do you want to talk about that 70% threshold, Jeff?
Well, one of the things I want to point out is I think on the 410 form, if you go further down, there's a description of what kind of committee they are.
Oh, right.
Right.
The original document.
Yeah, and so on that one, they call themselves a general purpose committee, I believe is the wording. And right next to it on the form, it says not formed to oppose or promote a particular candidate. All right, and so the very first thing that they did, and you could see it on the 496 that was just the form 496 that was just brought up, that particular money was earmarked to oppose Lori Saldana. So there seems to be a bit of a discrepancy there. So the 70% that Lori just mentioned, the way the rules work, that committee can be a general purpose committee if they don't spend more than 70% of their money either opposing or supporting a candidate. And anything over 70%, then they get reclassified as a primary committee. So they're watching that 70% very carefully. And if they spend some of that money and they don't mark it as opposing Lori Saldana, it can be for something that's going to wind up opposing her, but it won't sound like it. So they'll watch that 70% very carefully.
Can you let us know what a primary committee is and the contents of what you just shared, please?
JW, you want to?
Oh, no, all I know is it sounds like the primary purpose of the.
Oh, I'm
committee-
sorry. It's on that document. Yeah, I thought you meant in general. That one, a primary committee is basically formed, and the purpose that is stated at the time is either to oppose or to promote a candidate.
Okay, that makes
All right,
sense.
and that's usually controlled by the candidate, is my understanding. But whereas the general purpose committee, the way they've defined themselves, New San Diego, they are not supposedly controlled by the candidate, any candidate.
And the rest of the thing.
Also bring up that Kevin Faulkner was the master of these types of committees. He had what he called One San Diego.
Right.
And he had hundreds of thousands of dollars going through the One San Diego account. And if you followed that money when he was a mayor of San Diego, you would also track various initiatives around the city. So somebody would put money in, and then an initiative, a project, something would take place related to that money. So one theory about this account is that was the idea behind it, that it was set up as a general purpose committee to do what Kevin Faulkner had done with One San Diego, but this one was called New San Diego. And instead, it's lost its way.
I thought when I saw it and I said they're knocking off from Faulkner. That's exactly what he did, the same sort of thing. And they learned from him.
So what's the motive? What's the motive of setting up these? Isn't this like a PAC? Is that what can we define it as such?
Yes,
and if so, can you, for some people may not know what a PAC is. So we want to kind of educate the general public. Can one of you share with us what a PAC actually is? And also what is the motivation behind a PAC?
But
okay, sorry.
Well, it's called a political action committee, and it's basically set up to either oppose or support a candidate. But the way they do it, the money is not controlled by the candidate, so they can spend it however they want to support or oppose a candidate. One of the things I mentioned talking to Lori the other night, there's an excellent book out about this in national politics by Jane Mayer called Dark Money. I recommend anybody that wants to learn about dark money to get a hold of that book. It's absolutely fascinating. It mainly tracked on the national level with the Koch brothers and the ultra conservative movement out there, but it explains the issue, and you can see all this money's out there that people are allowed to spend on these campaigns, and they don't have any campaign limits the way the candidates would have.
That's the key. That's the key. When I ask someone to max out to my committee, $650, that's the maximum.
Right.
These committees, there is no ceiling. And one contributor gave $50,000.
Right.
One person.
Yeah, a guy named Ben Badie or something like that, Badie Development. That was kind of curious. So I haven't finished looking into him, but it almost looked like this is his baby.
Did Semper give a big chunk too, Jeff? Didn't you find who was
Not a big chunk.
Oh, okay.
I think they were around $2,500 if I recall.
right?
There's a lot of Well, I put the list in the OB Rag story, so it tells everybody who did it. The biggest contributor was this Batty Development. And then the next one down, I forget, it was $10,000. So it went from 50 to 10. And then a lot of smaller contributions, including Rachel Lang, who's Todd Gloria's communication director, for $500.
Lori, do you know anything about this developer? What do we know about him?
I have not done any research on these. I've been too busy being a candidate.
Well,
And I'm
that's our
grateful
job.
for folks doing this
Yeah.
tonight.
That's our job. We
I can
should get
tell-
on that.
I can tell you what I did find. After I read Jeff's article, then I read about the guy that signed, what's his name, Lori, who signed, Cabrera. He signed off on it. Then I did some calling around and found out there was an event for the mayor on December, I got to look at it now, on December the 10th at the Prado for Todd Gloria celebrating 1 year. And the mailers were sent out, or the request to show up for the VIP reception, which was $5,000, by the way, 4:30 to 5 p.m., $5,000 for the VIP reception for Mayor Todd Gloria at the Prado. It was a very famous Democratic fundraising firm, KM Strategies. I asked them, what was the purpose of this event? Because all I have shows it, you see a picture of the mayor, the date, and how much money it's gonna cost to go there, and that's it. But I am told by two different sources, this is what generated the money, and Cabrera, that's the money that he has had, and he is controlling now because he's controlling the entity.
Yeah, that actually sounds about right, because if you look at the dates of the contributions, they all came around that time.
I think this is a pretty big chunk of change, though. When you
Yeah.
look at the prices for the tickets, my goodness, I mean, $5,000 for VIP reception, half an hour to meet the mayor. I can't afford $5,000.
So this is about access. This is about ensuring you have access to the mayor's office.
Right.
But
And that's
again,
why you worry them. That's why you worry them. And I also found out the reason why they're frightened of you. The Chamber of Commerce did a poll. Did you know this, Lori? They did a poll, and you did well in the poll, and you have scared them. And the Democrats and the Republicans both know that you scored very highly on a poll, and they are they're frightened of you. They're worried about you, and I don't know why. You seem a very nice person, but that's what's going on. That's the reality of it. Some Chamber of Commerce poll, and you polled very, very well.
and we knew about the polling because we
Oh.
did an event around the same time, and a lot of guests at the event that lived in Point Loma and Ocean Beach were saying, wow, we got this polling, a real person asking questions, not one of those respond by text polls. So a poll like that costs probably upwards of $30,000. So they're already putting a big chunk of money into this poll, and they're testing exactly on these questions. What if you knew she had an ethics violation? What if you knew she opposed solar energy? What if you knew she took money from fossil fuel corporations?
Mm-hmm.
So all those questions they asked tie in exactly with the messaging. And I realize not everyone on the group tonight has seen those emails, or rather those mail messages, but they're all focused on those issues that they tested through that survey to see what would draw down voters against me. So this is voter suppression against me, targeted specifically, and it's already costing them $30,000 to $40,000 before they even mail their first attack ad.
And I learned that it's not like, it was like you said, Lori, it's not like 10 questions. This was a 20-minute interview.
Yes.
I mean, it was some serious stuff. That's some serious polling.
Yes.
And I want to ask you all, and maybe even Paul, why is it so little discussion about these mailers that went out?
Well, I would say that number one, we're just, Jeff really is the first person to write about this. There's very, very little knowledge of it still generally. It does take time for it to filter down either, to the more quote unquote mainstream media, the 5 television stations, the Union Tribune, Voice of San Diego, Times of San Diego. It would also take time for Jeff's article to circulate. So I think there's a good chance that we might see more discussion on this, likely in Michael Smolin's column on politics in the paper, or perhaps David Garrick at the Union Tribune. Scott Lewis at the Voice of San Diego might write something. Ken Stone at the Times of San Diego. But as I've commented earlier, it's very important that we get more coverage on this, because everybody has their ballots. A lot of people are voting by mail. People are voting every day. The sooner we get some public discussion on this, the better. And lastly, let me just say that reporters do respond to interest and inquiries from readers and viewers, and everyone out there who either has questions about or is concerned about the content of these mailers and the motive and identity of those behind it should be emailing or calling whatever media they watch or read and ask for a story. Let's get more people involved.
So Paul, are you saying that it's as easy as that? Just as a resident, as a reader or a subscriber, we can just contact a media outlet and request for a story to cover something that may appear to be an attack ad? Is there other steps related, or does it depend on who you are or who you know?
Let me clarify on that. I mean, they're not going to jump and do a story that you suggest, but yes, it can be as easy as people alerting a reporter to a potential story, because that's how reporters get stories. I mean, I did it for 45 years, and a huge percentage of what I wrote about, sometimes the very best stories were tips and questions I got from friends and neighbors. And, more often, ideas that I picked up by reading smaller outlets. When I was at NBC, every day we would all come in with the Union Tribune. We took our stories from the newspaper a lot of times. And now, in the kind of age of the internet, reporters will read. I sent Jeff's story to every political reporter in San Diego and said, you need to cover this. Now, I haven't heard back from one of them, but I think a lot of them feel like, I'm not worthy anymore because I'm retired, But the answer to your question, Sonia, is that it can be as easy as simply alerting a reporter to the existence of a story. There is absolutely no guarantee they will do it. And sometimes they will refuse to do it because of their own politics.
I'd like to add something to that too. Like you said, if a reporter got one tip about a story, it's like, yeah, okay, it sounds kind of interesting. But if they got 10 or 15 about the same thing, then that will get their attention.
Absolutely.
All right, Danny, was there? Oh, go ahead, Lori.
Well, I think it's been brought up, this is a moving target. And all the years that I was in the legislature, working on legislation regarding FPPC, the world changed. We had digital ads, we had social media. It's always a challenge to keep up with how people are spreading their political information. And we see it even now with the battles over Twitter being taken over, and are we going to give access to political players that have been banned? And so how you communicate with the public is you know, the tools that we have, the social media and electronic and digital tools we have to do that are fast outpacing the rules and the laws and the policies that were derived 50 years ago. Because the Fair Political Practices Commission was created right around the time of Watergate. Many of you are too young to remember, but we're talking a half century of trying to deal with dirty politics. And so it's always catching up. And you know, a lot of people take advantage of that. As new things come available, they do that because there's no law that says they can't, until a law gets created and says they can't do it.
So I would also like to ask, thanks for providing that information, because even someone earlier mentioned the difference between, you know, it being ethical or legal, right? And so you're definitely highlighting more specifically on that point. So as a voter though, I receive a mailer in my mailbox. I see this information. I mean, unless I know that person specifically, right? What am I supposed to do with this information? And how do I know if the information is accurate? And then, and even more important, should I ask, is what should I do to be an informed voter to verify this information? Do you guys have any tips or suggestions on that?
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, if you look at the mailer and you see a bunch of claims and you see no information that you yourself could check provided with the claims, you can pretty much be sure that they aren't true. In other words, if they're going to quote an article in the Chronicle, I mean, they don't give the date or time or anything of that. So if they're not putting specific information and it's just a bunch of allegations on the mailer, you can pretty much be sure it's a load of crap.
Yeah, when I saw what you wrote, I looked at the mailers, none of them had a date, none of them made it easy to find, and they used listen to this statement. As a Sacramento politician, Lori Saldana was a favorite of lobbyists. Where the hell how can you make a claim like that? They got a lobbyist club and she voted #1 year after year. And just on the face of it, it's ridiculous. And it's in the wording. If you pay attention to the wording, and they don't reference where they get this information from, they take a huge article and they take one paragraph. You know how that works. Anyway.
And if you really want to check it, you can do it pretty easily. You can take that snippet and you can put it in Google. Nowadays it's great. And you can find it. And if you do that, you'll find these articles don't say what they're claiming, what they write above it. The lie they put above it, then they piece of this article. And if you check the article, I mean, one of them, their biggest claim was that Lori took all this oil money and this big deal. And when you look in this, it was from 2006. They named 20 politicians that they were looking at, and Lori's name wasn't even on the list. Her name's not even in the article, and it's 3,200 words long.
And it's 2006. These articles were from early 2000. She was still in the assembly then. So it's not like this happened last week. Not that that's an excuse, but they didn't, if they'd put the date on it, I would have felt, well, at least they're being honest about it, but they didn't put the date on it. That's a red flag.
All right, so there are quite a bit of messages in the chat. I don't know if we're at a time that we can, share or inquire or mention some of these. So one of our attendees, Madeline, said, "Thank you, Jeff, for your outstanding investigation. You are doing a great service to the public." And then I very necessarily asked, is there a website for AdWatch? And I think that's a really good question to ask for resources just in general.
That would be JW on that one, I think. AdWatch.
Fair Political Practices Committee. Google Fair Political Practices Committee.
I wonder if Danny, can you write that in there, or Fair Political
Practices. Or are you going to do it, Sonia?
Yeah, committee.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair Political Practices, and then AdWatch.
It's actually commission, Fair Political Practices.
Oh, that's
Commission.
right. Committee, commission,
And then AdWatch.
right.
Okay. All right, great. And I don't know if there is any other questions here, probably. So I have one for just a general comment. If I says Lori thinks for herself She does not take orders from anyone. So that sounds like someone that believes that that's the reason why you're getting these attack ads. And I have another comment here. It says, when Gil Cabrera was running for supervisor, Jen Campbell gave him a meet and greet at her home. And I think they asked, like, is there maybe any ties to that, and who's funding?
He actually ran for city attorney.
Okay. So the race might have been a little different, but I think the concept might still be accurate.
And that's, frankly, that's just the way that the game is played. People hold meet and greets, they host events, they raise money.
That's a good point.
But he also was chair of the City Ethics Commission that dealt with violations of this type. So it really raises a red flag about how could a former chair of the Ethics Commission not understand some of the rules. For example, the SEMPRA money that was contributed to this committee in December has never shown up on any of their filings. I'm not sure when their next filing report is due, but Gil has been around in San Diego politics at very high levels for quite a few years.
I believe those filings are done quarterly. I got Cabrera on the phone and asked him when his next one would come out. He wouldn't tell me, so I researched it, and it looks like they come out quarterly, so it wouldn't be until the end of June.
So
Before you get
March 31st?
Before you get the next one. So we already have the one list, but the contributions, I don't think you'll hear any more about until the end of June, if I understand this correctly.
After the election, very convenient.
Right.
So we talked about impunity in general, I mean, in some of these cases, right? Or these case studies. So what happens when the information comes out and people find out that it's not true? Is there any recourse, I guess my question is, for either the candidate or the person that might have been lied on or had alternative truths shared on them, lies, right? And was able to prove that. As investigator journalists, are you all able to share or enlighten us on what the steps of recourse is in those incidents?
Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead, Park.
Well, I think the main recourse for me personally would be to find out the names of the people behind it and shine a light on them. It's kind of like the cockroaches running out of the kitchen. I mean, people don't like attention. So the more attention you can get on the actual people behind it, I think is the best you can do. There's nothing illegal, unfortunately, about what they're doing.
I agree with that. And well, with the exception that there may be violations in what they're doing, and as were discussed earlier, but I think the truth based on my experience, I mean, the reality based on my experience is that any enforcement action by any government agency comes after the election. I don't recall any enforcement action taken with any sort of speed. So enforcement is really not useful in terms of getting to the truth of these mailers. And going back to what Jeff says, what matters is the public educating themselves with the help of the media to understand the truth or lack thereof of the content of the mailers, and equally important, who is paying for them, and by identifying them, what do we then learn about their motive for spending their hard-earned money on these mailers?
The problem is the horse is out of the barn for Lori in this election. When they slap him on the hand a year from now, that doesn't help Lori Saldana in her race. If she's been that's why we all have to be informed. We all have to pay attention. We have to get our neighbors involved, because if you don't do that, they'll keep doing this. If they can get away with it, they're going to get away with it, because they want to run things their way. That's how they do business.
I just wanted to jump in here. My name is Danny. I'm the campaign manager for Lori Saldana. we do need to wrap up, so I'm going to take one question from the audience, and then we'll address that and move on to the next section of our forum discussion here. So Michael Kreisenbeck, you had your hand up for a while.
He's muted. He's muted. Can I unmute him?
Yeah, Mike, you're muted. We can't hear you. I guess he's having technical
right.
issues. Okay, we'll come
All
back.
right,
to that.
we'll move on to John Fauci. How's it going, John?
Well, it's very interesting that Jen Campbell is using some of the same exact information about this Yakuma reduction of size rather than being against it that Lori is accused of. The same words used in the new San Diego ads. Is there some collusion between them, do you think?
No doubt.
So the way the law works, you cannot coordinate if a committee is raising money in support of your candidacy, you're not supposed to be coordinating with that committee. So it was very interesting how similar the messaging is. You know, polls get leaked, information gets shared, and people make their political choices with the best information they have. And that's why I tell people the best information I have is I must be ahead, because you don't spend $100,000 against somebody who's losing. So in the same way, I think that the people that are managing Jen's campaign must understand that this is a message that somebody is polled on, whether they saw the poll or not, they're following the lead of the people with the money. But it is an interest, but they're not supposed to be coordinating.
I think we ought to mention too, I mean, we've talked about mailers, and what Lori was just referring to, there's also a statement from Jen Campbell's office, I don't know, whatever you call it, press release. And oddly enough, it contains some of the exact same lies that are in the mailers.
Right.
And this is coming from, now they're acknowledging at least this, I mean, they have their name on it. But it has the same crap that's in those mailers. And if there's not any kind of collusion here, I'm a monkey's uncle. There's no doubt that they're all doing this. And the fact that we've got our own District 2 city council member putting this kind of thing out is reason enough to kick her out of there.
I think it did come from the campaign, didn't it? It didn't come from her official elected office. It came from her political campaign office.
Her campaign, yes, ma'am. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. But they, you know, they have their name on it, and it was approved by her, even though it's not. You're right. That separation is important to know.
Thank you.
So Danny, did you want to move us on to our other commenters?
Sure. Michael Kreisenbeck, have you resolved your?
Somebody describe, put your cursor in the upper right-hand corner, find those three dots. Well, it says mute right there.
Oh, gotcha. Hold on. Let's see if we can ask him to unmute. Does that help? No. Oh dear.
Or ask him if he can put his question in the chat, and then we can address that.
But I do see a chat in the chat. Well, a question in the chat. It says, what tips can you give a non-political average voter San Diegan to get this dirty money and sleazy political attack ads to the local media? Please provide some steps.
You want me to answer that?
Sure.
I think that email a handful of reporters. I can put the email addresses in the chat. I'll put 5 of them in there. David Garrick and Mike. Actually, there's 3 of them at least at the Union Tribune, because you want the editorial writers are very important to know. Matt Hall and Chris Reed. David Garrick and Michael Smolens, all at the Union Tribune. And then I'll put Scott Lewis at the Voice of San Diego, and Chris Genuine at the Times of San Diego. I'll put those all in the chat. Send them an email, tell them you've learned about this mailer directed at Lori Saldana, and you want to know more about it. Who's behind it and why are they behind it? It's a very important race, and you think it's a public service for them to report on it. That's what I would do.
There's 4 of those mailers now too, not just one.
Yeah, and of course, it's not just Lori who's the subject of these. Dave Myers has been really hammered on these just as unfairly. So you might also just say a little more generically, we need more coverage of these mail. With everybody voting by mail, these things take much more importance, and we're not getting enough coverage on these. So I'll give you a starting point with these emails that I'm going to put in the chat.
Great, thank you.
Yes, thank you for those resources. So Danny, did you want us to pivot to hear from some of our community?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say so much thank you to our investigative journalists who are here doing the work on the ground, really making sure that the voters and the general public know what is going on with dirty money in politics right now. And so there's a much bigger issue, not just our campaign, but it's a much larger issue. And so I wanted to thank all 3 of you for being here today and really giving us detail by detail where this money is coming from. So appreciate you guys. And we're going to move over to our community leaders who would like to speak up today as well.
So I'll go ahead and introduce, hopefully he's made it here, Dr. Darwin Fishman. I believe you just wanted to say a few words.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great.
But I'm just trying to switch over. I'm on the phone to the computer. Is it possible to go someone else and then let me I just need like 2 minutes to switch over.
That's fine. And Danny, did you want to introduce our next speaker? Or?
Sure. So our next speaker, actually, he is the president of a local Democratic club here in San Diego, a local community organizer, and one of our good friends, Richard Ram. So if you want to unmute yourself, you'll here, let me get you spotlighted here.
Okay, I think I am unmuted. I'm sorry, Danny, did you want me to speak on behalf of the club or to ask a question?
So if you can speak on the behalf of the club, what this means for not only your endorsed candidates, but, dirty money in politics, money coming from, corporate lobbyists like Sempra, if you wanted to maybe address some of those concerns.
Okay, thank you. I had actually prepared some remarks. It's a little bit lengthy, but let me try and get through this. So my name is Richard. My last name is pronounced Ram, and I'm with San Diego County Democrats for Environmental Action. We are a Democratic club that is chartered with the San Diego County Democratic Party, but all too often we find ourselves at odds with the establishment, let's say, and I think that has to do with our members' advocacy on environmental issues. We are not too fond of Sempra Energy, and we're not too fond of the big developers in this town. And unfortunately, they've got the money and they are calling the shots. So, we've seen a lot of breaks with things that we advocate on from the Democrats on city council. Not all of them, but some of them certainly. And that's caused a lot of dismay in our club, and a lot of the establishment don't really like our club when we call these things out. But we got to do what we got to do, and we're not funded by any of these folks. So we advocated, for example, to oppose this corporate office park calling itself the Preserve at Torrey Highlands, being built adjacent to Del Mar Mesa Preserve in 2019. That was benefiting developer Cestera, who's now involved or was involved in the 101 Ash Street fiasco, having facilitated the sale and lease of that property between Semper Energy and the city. Then we got involved joining the Alliance for Public Power San Diego, urging leaders to form a publicly owned not-for-profit utility. And, you know, we had considerable leverage, I believe, not against, but, you know, I would say that the city was holding the cards in that deal. And they folded. They gave SDG&E exactly what they wanted. And that amounts to a 20-year deal. We saw 5 out of 7 Democrats on the council vote for that. We later found out from reporting by Matt Potter at San Diego Reader that Mayor Todd Gloria, Monty Von Wilpert, Raul Campillo, and Stephen Whitburn have all directly or indirectly received funds from their campaigns from Semper Energy. And then it's also been reported that several Semper Energy managers have been giving large donations to District 6 candidate Kent Lee this year. So our club is endorsed Lori Saldana for District 2. We've endorsed Tommy Howe in District 6. What can I say? If you look at those reports, you'll see that there was a 497 contribution report filed on May 17th. $5,000 was given from the new San Diego PAC to the San Diego County Democratic Party. And that was admitted as much by the party's executive director, Ryan Hurd, at the Central Committee meeting this past Tuesday. It's my take that this money must have been given to the party to back Kent Lee in the District 6 race, as the party does have an endorsement in that race. Earlier this year in January and February, we pushed back and we actually stopped the party from being able to endorse Jen Campbell, which is what a lot of the establishment people in the party wanted, but they didn't have the votes, so they backed down. So they don't have an endorsement. They aren't able to promote a candidate in District 2, but they are able to do so in District 6. So, you know, I also wanted to point out that the donation of the $5,000 or the contribution to the party really kind of flies in face of the party's own platform, which was adopted earlier this year also. In the section on political reforms, it states that we oppose taking money from fossil fuel companies. So if Semper Energy is a fossil fuel company, which it is, and they give money to New San Diego PAC, and New San Diego PAC gives money to the San Diego Democratic Party, I think that that's basically money laundering from the sources that they say they're not going to take money from. And I'd like some questions posed to the party as to why they accepted that money and what it's earmarked for, which I believe I know what it's earmarked for. So my last remarks are essentially, you know, we've seen who's behind this PAC, where they're getting money. We saw an email go out about 10 days ago or so, basically advertising Mayor Todd Gloria's personal endorsements, which include Jen Campbell in District 2 and Kent Lee in District 6. And I believe the PAC has really been formed to crush any voice of dissent on the city council. They can't handle the presence of a Lori Saldana or a Tommy Howe, who don't owe their political livelihoods to Semper Energy or to the developers. They can't handle anybody on city council who's going to raise red flags about some of the proposals going on at City Hall, be that 101 Ash Street 2.0 or 101 Ash Street 3.0. They just can't handle dissent. So that's my 2 cents.
I appreciate that. And I think you mentioned the party in direct violation of what they said that they wouldn't do. I think Lori Saldana was the author of that
I introduced
proposal.
the language for the platform. to oppose fossil fuel contributions. Yes, that was language I introduced. And we're trying to get it at the state level, and it's a huge battle at the state party level because Sempra and others are very big contributors to the California Democratic Party. Thank you so much, Richard. This is really challenging. This is really hard for the clubs that endorse candidates based on certain principles and then have the party take money in violation of those principles. It's a real challenge.
You know, for years and years, we'd see the party's annual fundraiser gala, the Roosevelt dinner with the big banner, you know, sponsored by San Diego Gas and Electric. And I don't know if we're going to see that anymore. They say the platform says that they're not to take money from fossil fuel companies, and Sempra Energy is definitely a fossil fuel company. They're fracking for natural gas. They were called a fossil fuel Leviathan by the Los Angeles Times. And for them to give money into this PAC and donations to candidates who are getting the official endorsement of the party, I don't know, there's, you know, I know a platform is not binding, but it should mean something to what our values are.
Very true. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Richard, for joining us today, and thanks for speaking on the behalf of the San Diego County Democrats for Environmental Action. So I think Michael Krasenbach was able to fix his audio. So did you have a question still?
Yes, can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, so okay, fantastic. So there was an important question raised earlier about the advertising. What am I supposed to do with these mailers that I get? And I wanted to give you some perspective on the side of the people who do the advertising, like myself. I've done campaigns, and I'm a former campaign manager for Lori. And I've met members of the opposition side too. And so when they do what they're doing with 5-6 pieces of mail with pictures of gifts and oil and Lori, they're not making an argument. They want to get you, they want the voter to have a feeling. And this is the point of the pathos of rhetoric. So they want the voter to have a feeling and a negative feeling and associate it with Lori. That's it. That's all they need. So it's in a race with a bunch of different candidates, that's done. And they'll do it in a number of ways. They have absolutely there's no guardrails and there's no bottom. These are the people who, when running against Lori for supervisor, were doing the mail at the party offices, candidate in the room, directing the messaging with Dan Rottenstreich and the same political consultant who did the press release the other day, calling Lori a liar for telling the truth, same guy. And according to the former party chair, she told me as an apology for a piece that they had sent out, which was a lie about Lori not standing up for women, which Lori did, and they had her actually shielding Bob Filner in a number of mail pieces, late, of course, because these were really, really objectionable and false. And so Jessica Hayes told me that she had to persuade them not to do mail against Lori, charging her with treason. And first of all, the candidate is not supposed to be, the party rather is not supposed to be coordinating with the candidate on these kinds of messages. That's wrong. I don't know if Jessica knew that was wrong at the time, but it's against the rules, it's against the law. But they didn't have a problem with that. Nobody ever gets caught for that. Nobody ever gets caught for these things. There is no sanction. But now, I think it's been taken too far by people like Donald Trump in Washington, and people have an understanding now that this kind of lying can be corrosive and destructive, and it's an attack on democracy when you try to delegitimize an election by lying about candidates and giving false information to voters. So I think the articles that have been in the OB rag have been very, very good at connecting this activity with that activity, because it's exactly what it is. It's the same thing. And every time a president gets elected, people emulate what they did, either side, both sides, because that's success, and people emulate success in politics. Making this fail in San Diego would be a major contribution towards democracy in San Diego and the United States, to get this kind of practice to fail, because other consultants will see that it failed. They'll be influenced by this. The way to do that is to go after the people that are doing it. If Dan Rottenstreich wants to be the Steve Bannon of San Diego Democratic political consultants, then let him be that, but let's get him out of the shadows, name him, and show what he is doing, as well as the candidates that are working with him, that are encouraging him to do this and paying him to do it. This exposure is the way to show this divide between a style of politics, let's say, that is destructive, corrosive, and everything, it has everything that happens, all the disinformation and lying and crazy Trumpy type of stuff is everything. It's not violent yet, but it's everything that happens before the violence happens. So everything that led up to the attack on the Capitol in Washington, all that's happening with local politics in San Diego today. It's the same kind of rhetoric. It's the same strategy. And if that is allowed to win again, as it did in 2018, we'll see it again, and it'll be extended. It'll be worse. And I hope everybody can see this and will do what they can to punish the perpetrators.
I think transparency, that's why we're doing this tonight. Yes, we're in the middle of a campaign. We're out there literally putting up yard signs a short time before we came into this meeting. We need the transparency though, because otherwise a lot of this it will just continue. And I wanted to bring in Darwin. I think Darwin got his technology fixed, to talk about some of the racial aspects of what they're doing. And just a reminder, I'm the first person of color to represent the San Diego area north of downtown. I was the first in the state legislature, and actually the first even at the city level and county level. And so, Darwin, do we have Darwin here?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thanks for being part of this tonight.
Oh yeah, no, thanks for inviting me. Thank you, Sonia, for reaching out to me. We were just driving home and I was using Brookie's phone. But we were listening in, and so really appreciate the discussion. So I heard most of it, and I'm not gonna, of course, speak on behalf of any organization. I'm gonna put on actually my professorial hat. And I know, Laura, you don't know this, but I actually had done research on this. I did actually I wrote a book about the racist attacks on Obama. And the debate I got in with poli-sci folks on the academic level, I think it's instructive. I could start with that, which is the discourse is that it's political attack ads, everyone does it, it's always been around, so what? But the argument, I haven't really heard this tonight, which is actually it's different for people of color. That's a different level. We can't respond in kind. If you're using racist and sexist attacks like attacks on identity, who we are, it's not like you can change identity. Can't change color. So that's a core thing. And we also know it does connect to attracting things like white votes. If you attack someone in a racist, sexist way, we know there's obviously, and Michael was spot on, we know there's of course from Trump, but in general with Republicans using the white nationalism, it's a thing about the fear. And you can't trust the person. And the flip side, of course, is I am safe. I'm comfortable. You can be comfortable with me. I'm white. You can identify with me. And it's not so subtle part of those attack ads that come with it. And that's what, for me, certainly set alarm bells, what was going on, the attacks on Lori. And let me also add, we just had Georgette Gomez, Dave Myers, and I was not surprised, even like the thing with Dave, what do you turn him into? A black devil with red horns, put him in blackface. And, you know, it's not subtle what they're doing. And I also agree that there's also a danger, because not only do we need to reject it with this election, and it's, again, not just Lori, and I'm especially concerned about with women of color and how difficult it is for them already to run for office. Then if you do these kind of attack ads, I know other women of color that are not running for office because of this fear. So it's true, at least on San Diego, I hope we can really reject it. And I think the other thing that I'm really deeply concerned about is that we sweep it under the rug. It's like we're doing it because of certain issues we're concerned about. We don't want to necessarily get into the thing about the process. So I really appreciate you doing this, Lori. The last thing I do want to say though is, and I think we have to be open about this, and I'll start with the self-disclosure. I have worked for the Democratic Party. I've worked for unions, and they also very much know this. So one of the things I was in my training, national training with the Democratic Party, Sausalito, they talked openly about, so what happens with attack ads is, and in these negative attack ads, we've gotten to a point now where, and this is, I'm sorry, like the really pessimistic part, but they've done enough research to know it actually doesn't matter how you respond. It doesn't even matter if the mainstream media says the person is lying, because the damage is media. And they do the thing of like, if you accuse someone of beating their wife, so there's a part about now, it's incredibly hard in that sense to quote unquote correct the damage that's done, and it's known. And what's even more really well known and established is the more negative ads you have in election, this holds true unfortunately from local to national, it does suppress the vote. And the people that are more likely not to vote are things like not just Democrats, but things like women and people of color, because they're more turned off by that. Who are the people that are more likely to come out every time? Most loyal voters are going to be things like white males of a certain age, certain education, and certain income. So from the Republican standpoint, in that sense, it's advantageous, but it's also sad to see, of course, and we need to be really open about this. A whole lot of Democrats are doing this too. And we can't say that they're naive to the implications of that and what's going to happen. So really appreciate this event, and we need to have more of this, and we've got a lot of work, and I hope that also people link up about this, because again, it's not just Lori's campaign that's being slimed in this way. And when you get those kind of racist and sexist ads, there's no equivalent of attacking the other person back sort of thing. It just doesn't work. So thank you, and that's I wanted to share.
Thank you, Darwin. Thank you for your research on that, because what people who are not well served by government and already don't trust the process, and often that is the lowest income, disadvantaged, communities of color, they're already low propensity voters. So when you go after them, you're really discouraging them. But in this case, the polling was very interesting. It hit some of the less diverse communities, Point Loma, Ocean Beach. The communities we heard from, oh yeah, we're getting our polling calls from that expensive poll that was done last month. They were looking at what would discourage the white voters from voting for Lori Saldana. That seemed like be a very clear pattern based on what we were hearing from who was being contacted and what neighborhoods were being contacted.
Right, and let me just add, Lori, I literally already had a discussion with someone I consider on our side a progressive, who was basically insinuating, well, because Lori is getting this, well, maybe Joel Day would be a better candidate. He's a white male. Maybe they won't attack him in that way. Maybe that's a better way to get rid of, chokehold Jen. And that's scary, because we have to be very open and honest about that, about, well, a white male, if they're not going to be attacked in that way, maybe that would be a better Democrat to run.
A lot of levels to this. Beyond the investigations, beyond the falsehoods, it's like, what's really driving a lot of this? And thank you again. And thank you for walking door to door and being out there on the ground too and seeing what's going on. Appreciate that. So
yes, so go ahead, Lori.
I was going to ask Sonia if we have another speaker. And
well, we had another question. Lori, I think we did cover our speakers, but if it's all right with you, there was a question I thought was really good. It was directly to you that I wanted to share. And so the question says, does Lori have a written position or explanation about the information in the mailer that can be shared with friends?
I have not developed anything like that. That's an excellent idea. And thank you for that suggestion, and we can work on getting something. Aside from just saying it's false, it's misleading, and it's designed to discourage voting, and on the face of it, it's just, these are lies. But we should flesh that out so you can share that in a little more compelling way. Good idea. We'll put it on the website, and people who are part of this will I'll let you know when we get that up that you can link to.
So I definitely think we're getting some good responses of people that seem like they want to take action. Before we move to the end part of our forum, and thank you all for joining us on this. We just felt like it was so important for us to be informed voters and to understand what tools we can use. And I really appreciate the tools that J.W. August shared with us, the information that Paul Kruger shared with us, and the information that Jeff Page shared with us. And I believe respectfully, if we want to provide them, if they have any last words they want to say to us before we transition to the next part and the ending of our forum. Or Lori, unless you had something you wanted to say right now, of course, the floor is yours.
No, I'd like to hear, after JW and Paul and Jeff have listened to some of the remarks and comments, if there's any other things that come up in their mind as they research this.
Yeah, just if they want to leave us with any, food for thought, or, any last words or their last summary.
Well, let me just say, educate, educate, educate. Listening to those really insightful words from Darwin and Richard and people who have so much more experience in politics, it's kind of humbling about the impact of the mailers. So it just leads me to believe that, we've all just got to do a better job of educating ourselves about what our candidates are standing for, and educating our neighbors through every medium and recourse that we have.
Yeah, and I would say we could all learn from Jeff Page, who is not a journalist by trade, but does now. It's a matter of being curious, about being concerned, asking questions. Don't accept a door slam as the answer. Be persistent. And the list of all the journalists that are on the chat, you could reach out to most of those folks, and they'll tell you if you're running into a brick wall, what you can do to get around it. Or you have an idea that you should do a story.
Great, that is wonderful. Thank you so much for letting us know if there is a brick wall, that there were capabilities for us to go around it. Jeff, do you also have a few words you wanted to share?
Well, I would just say, and I think what we said before, whenever you see something like this from people, just look at it with a jaundiced eye. Look at it to see if it makes any sense, to see if there's any substantiation for what anybody's saying. And if nothing else, complain to the people who are using these tactics. And in this case, it's both the mayor and Jen Campbell. They want her back in that office. Everything that we've seen and we're reading about these attack ads and everything else, they don't want Lori in there, that's for sure. But they want to keep Campbell in there because they've got her well controlled. And I would say my advice to anybody is, if you see the world picking on somebody in particular with a bunch of ridiculous claims, you better figure that person's probably the person that you want to look at closely as being the one to vote for.
I like the twist on that, specifically in this case study.
Well, that's how it strikes me. When I see somebody doing that, I'm going, okay, why don't they like this person, and why is everybody piling on? And then, if nothing else, if you're not sure, then read more about Lori and you'll probably figure it out.
Great point, Jeff. Danny, did you have any words, or I'm going to transition over to you, I guess.
Sure. I want to say thank you to everyone who is here today and really taking the time out of their day to be more educated about this, have a community discussion. And it's incredibly important that we get the message out there. I can't stress enough that this is about our democracy and about where this city and this country goes. And so I want to, again, thank you guys so much for being here, but I'm going to provide more information about where we can get involved, how we can educate more voters, and really provide more information about Lori's campaign, because we're not waiting to be elected to get stuff done. We're doing stuff now. And I think that's what makes Lori stand out versus the rest of the competition. She's not waiting. She's been actively participating in the democratic process, former legislator. And we were talking last night about all the firsts that that Lori has been through with this state. And now we want to go through the firsts with the city and really start bringing about some change. So again, I appreciate everyone for being here. I'm adding some of the links. Our website is at lorisaldana.com. And then the volunteer link is also there, but I'll give it back to Lori to talk more about this.
Well, as Danny said, and Sonia was great. The other night we were walking in a neighborhood and a family began to tell me a really disturbing story of violence. They needed a restraining order. And it so happened, unfortunately, I had some direct experience that I could share with them. And I began having a conversation with them of how to get a protective order, how to get a person out of a home, what to tell the police. And I'm acting like I'm already doing constituent services for this family. And Sonia is coming over saying, do you want to put up a yard sign to support? So I had to kind of break through. Thank you, Sonia, for reminding me. I'm not able to do constituent services until I actually have constituents. And that's the biggest fear for my opponents, is that I will actually have constituents. And John, you've been a constituent and I see you waving your hand. But I did want to give the journalists a chance to depart if they feel comfortable, because we are going to switch gears and talk, what does this campaign need to succeed? And John, I was on my way to deliver a voting list. I'm going to let you, you've been very patient and had your hand up. I was on my way to deliver a neighborhood contact list to John to talk to people in his community. And let me see if I can unmute. There you go. Oops. There you go, John. Whoops, I think I muted you. Go ahead.
Lori, all of us on this program want to support you in defying these blatant ads against you. If Danny could put out the top 3 things legislatively or positions you've held, environmental particularly, we'll circulate it amongst thousands of people to get you elected. We really need some defense against this blatant hypocrisy. Thank you.
Thanks. And the door hangers I have, I mean, I am for anti-fossil fuel, for clean local solar energy, reduce utility bills, build more affordable housing. It's really pretty simple. My messages are not complicated. I want to make San Diego more affordable for the average person. And what drives it is housing costs, monthly utility bills going up, gasoline at $6 a gallon. So I talk about those issues. How do we get things less expensive for people to keep them in their home and prevent people from becoming unsheltered and homeless? But it will get you those door hangers. If anybody is available to help us, we're walking door to door. You know, we need your help to fight dirty money, because there's few times have I seen money as dirty as this money. I just got to tell you. And that $50,000 contribution from a big developer, when I'm on record saying developers run the show in this town, I said that publicly at a forum with the Union Tribune. Next thing I know, we're just getting all these shots against us. So, so John, thank you for reaching out to your neighbors. And that's what it's going to take, people-to-people conversations. Every time I knock on a door, every time I talk to a voter in person, and I joke and say, you may have gotten those love letters, then they, they have my name on it, but I'm not sending them. They're coming from my opponents. I can't tell you how many people walk over, drop them in the recycling bin and say, you got my vote. And I ask if I can put up a yard sign, and they put up a yard sign. That's how we win. That's how progressives, that's how people win. And we still have a chance to do that, but we definitely need the help of people who are in this meeting, wherever you are. You can do phone banking, you can do other contact, you can come walk with us. I don't know how much weight I've lost, but I know I've lost weight. It's a great way to lose weight. Sonia will attest to that. She saw me the other day. It's like, whoa, what happened? So please, it's good for you, but more importantly, it's good for democracy, and it's essential for San Diego. We need your help. And you can always contribute. If you're not able physically to walk and you don't want to call and talk to people, contribute money so we can afford to get more people that can do that on behalf of this campaign. Danny, did I leave anything out?
I would just say that we are, yes, we're walking and talking to voters. That's the most important thing. We have 2 more weeks left. It is down to the wire, and we are text banking every day. We are texting thousands of folks a day. We are sending emails. We are phone banking every day. We are talking to voters, meeting them where they're at. And really, we're not going to stop doing that up until election day. I can tell you, we will have a, we're still putting this in the works, but we will have a election party that we hope that everyone in this room today can join us. More details to come about that, but really right now, what I'd like to ask every one of you in the room today is if you can pull out your phones right now. If you're on the phone, fine, but if you can pull out your phones and sign up for a shift. If you can sign up for a shift, just 1 or 2 shifts to help make sure that we're putting in that effort in the streets and that we're educating voters to make sure that their voices are heard at the polls. It's incredibly important that people exercise their right to vote. And like Lori said, if you cannot, schedule two shifts, please volunteer. Please donate to fight back against this dirty money, because we are not going to go to corporate lobbyists. We are not going to go to this dirty money to get elected. We are going to get elected with small dollar donations that we've been getting so far. And that's how we've been able to really fight back against well, let's just call it what it is, the corruption at City Hall. So please donate, please volunteer. We need volunteers more than anything. We can walk, we can talk, we can text. We will meet you where you're at. We just need the time and the effort to get Lori elected so that we have a voice on City Hall. Because for 4 years, we haven't had, or more than that actually, but we haven't had a voice to represent District 2 in City Hall. And with the experience that Lori brings, the state experience, the national experience, a lot of the experience in the local community is helping a lot of the nonprofits. She serves on a nonprofit. We want to bring all that experience down to City Hall to make sure that the community is heard more than these developers, more than these corporate lobbyists. We need the community to lobby for themselves. And the way we do that is we knock and talk to voters.
I love that, Danny. You said we need to lobby for ourselves. Yes, and so we believe that Lori is the voice for the people, as you've heard her speak. So yeah, I just had to say that because I love that she said that. We have to lobby for ourselves. We have to get out there and make it happen. And so I appreciate so much that this is such a grassroots, a person that is a champion for the people, a voice for all of us. So I just wanted to say that. It wasn't scripted, but I was touched.
So
Lori, if you want to give any few words.
Oh, is there anything else?
If you could just close us out, that would be great.
Well, we pulled this together. Sonia, thank you. You pulled this together, and Danny and I did our best to support this. Thank you. And FYI, you may have noticed, folks, that we are recording it because Sonia also has a radio program on KNSD, a local radio station that works on progressive issues. She has a program, and Sonia, let us know when you're going to use some excerpts from this to talk about dirty money in campaigns and how this impacts our communities and really makes it hard for people to run for office unless they have the backing of wealthy people that already are really getting pretty much what they want from government at every level. So with that, I think we're ready to wrap up. And I'm just so grateful for the people who have joined us. I'm grateful for the researchers who dug into these lies. And it's just astounding that that type of misrepresentation and falsehoods and lies can be sent out to thousands and thousands of households, and we don't have any way to stop it. It's really hard to get it out there, but we're going to keep doing it for 2 more weeks.
So let your voice be heard, people. Let's make sure that you, as Lori mentioned, share her story, her platform, her record with your neighbors in District 2, and make sure that you encourage and rally up, you know, the base there in District 2 to get out the votes and vote for Lori.
And we've got a lot of yard signs. We're happy to get them out wherever you are in District 2. So let us know. We'll get you a yard sign to show your neighbors your support. Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you all for
you.
coming out, and we'll be following up. We'll definitely follow up with you all. You'll hear from Danny, I'm sure, as a follow-up, and make sure you guys have the contacts of all of the journalists that and resources that was provided to. So I want to thank all the journalists that came as well. Thank you for providing your expertise.
Thank you so much. Excellent, outstanding.
Thank you.
I learned a lot.
Thank you, Madeline. I know we want to be in touch with you.
I'm ready to write, and I
know.
want people to join me on this call. I'm ready. I don't know. I'm your average person that votes. I need people to help me. I'm ready to write letters. I'll do what I need to do, but I need others to join me. So I need people to commit tonight. Let's email. Let's get this on local media now. I'm ready.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I'm sure we'll be in touch with you. I love your spirit.
This is, I find it disgusting, and this is killing our democracy.
It is a scapegoat. We can't let lies be the scapegoat. Because you're right, because it could corrupt our democracy. Absolutely.
Good people will not run for public office because of this. Thank you.
Madeline. You're a hard worker. You got John Ossoff elected and Warlock elected in Georgia. Thanks for all your work down in Georgia a year and a half ago. All right, folks, it's 8:30. It's time to wrap this up. Thank you. Really.
Good
Thank you all. Thank you all.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Okay.
Paul.
Thank
you,
you.
Danny and Sonia, for having me
Good
on.
information. Thanks,
Bye now.
Richard. You spoke great. Thank you, Richard. Well, let me stop recording.